TV7 Israel News is made possible thanks to your generous donation. Shalom ve'erev tov, good evening. Welcome to our daily TV7 Israel News Bulletin, broadcast from Jerusalem. A fragile ceasefire has taken effect between the United States, Israel, and the Islamic Republic of Iran. U.S. Vice President JD Vance stresses that unless Iran negotiates in good faith, the joint U.S. Israel offensive will resume. Jerusalem emphasizes that the ceasefire with Iran does not include a ceasefire between Israel and the Iranian proxy Hezbollah in Lebanon. A 2-week ceasefire has taken effect overnight, which was announced by U.S. President Donald Trump overnight, while hundreds of U.S. Air Force aircraft, including strategic bombers, alongside hundreds of additional Israeli Air Force aircraft, were en route to degrade much of Iran's dual-use infrastructure throughout the heavily battered country. It is important to explain that the Ayatollah regime, through its terror arm, the Islamic Revolutionary Guards Corps, or IRGC, sought to convey the United States a defiant, fatalist, uncompromising position, effectively pledging to wreak havoc against civilian infrastructure throughout the Middle East.
The wave of effective and heavy attacks by Iran's armed forces against the military, security, and economic infrastructure of the Zionist regime in the occupied territories, and centers linked to the criminal United States in the region, will continue with greater intensity and scale. We will act against U.S. infrastructure and that of its allies in a way that will deprive them of the region's oil and gas for years and force them to leave the region.
This position was short-lived, since once hundreds of U.S. and Israeli aircraft were spotted making their way to Iran to fulfill the American president's orders, the Ayatollah regime effectively blinked, informing the Pakistani leadership, which mediated between Washington and Tehran, that they would accept the American terms for a temporary ceasefire of 2 weeks moving forward. The basis for the ceasefire include 15 points, which the United States had demanded, and 10 Iranian points that the Ayatollah regime had asked for, which, it is important to emphasize, are not the 10 points which the Islamic Republic's propaganda arms have circulated on social media. Meanwhile, in Hungary, U.S. Vice President JD Vance, in a Q&A session at the Matthias Corvinus Collegium in Budapest, expanded on events unfolding prior to the fragile ceasefire taking effect.
Look, I do think there are good developments here. And let me just say a few things. First of all, what the president set out to do was decimate the Iranian military, decimate their ability to wage conventional war. And that military objective, as the president said yesterday, as I said yesterday, has been achieved. And because of that, what the president did is he basically issued an ultimatum to the Iranians. He said, open up the straits, stop trying to hold the world's economy hostage, and we'll engage in a ceasefire. And that's exactly the agreement that we came to last night. The Iranians have agreed to open up the straits. The United States has agreed to stop attacking. And not just the United States, but also our allies have agreed to stop attacking. And that is the basis of this fragile truce that we have, which is now, 8 to 12 hours old.
The American vice president continued by highlighting some personal lessons learned from the attitude of the Ayatollah regime, which is known for its deceptive tactics.
So I've learned a lot about the Iranian system and a lot about the way the Iranians negotiate. As the president told me last night, the Iranians are better negotiators than they are fighters. I'm sure they don't like to hear that, but it's true. But here's a couple things. So, one, just in the response that we've seen from various segments of Iran, you have on the one hand people within Iran who have responded very favorably. The foreign minister who said, look, we agreed to the United States' terms. We'll do a ceasefire, we'll do a negotiation, we'll open the Straits of Hormuz, and then we'll see if we can come to more agreement down the road. So some of the people have responded favorably, and have said the right things. And then you have some people on social media within their system who are basically lying about what we've accomplished militarily. They're lying about the nature of the agreement. They're lying about the nature of the ceasefire. And so you have just, even within their system, and this is why I say this is a fragile truce, you have people who clearly want to come to the negotiating table and work with us to find a good deal. And then you have people who are lying about even the fragile truce that we've already struck. And that's just an interesting thing about their system.
Vice President Vance continued by stressing that the Ayatollah regime has now the opportunity to negotiate in good faith, or else face the consequences of a resumption of hostilities.
The President of the United States has told me, and he's told the entire negotiating team, the Secretary of State, the Special Envoy Steve Witkoff, he said, go and work in good faith to come to an agreement. That is what he has told us to do. If the Iranians are willing, in good faith, to work with us, I think we can make an agreement. If they're going to lie, if they're going to cheat, if they're going to try to prevent even the fragile truce that we've set up from taking place, then they're not going to be happy. Because what the president has also shown is that we still have clear military, diplomatic, and maybe most importantly, we have extraordinary economic leverage. So the president has told us not to use those tools. He's told us to come to the negotiating table. But if the Iranians don't do the exact same thing, they're going to find out that the president of the United States is not one to mess around. He's impatient. He's impatient to make progress. He has told us to negotiate in good faith. And I think if they negotiate in good faith, we will be able to find a deal. But that's a big if. And ultimately, it's up to the Iranians how they negotiate. I hope they make the right decision.
Meanwhile, at the Department of War in Washington, Secretary Pete Hegseth announced that last night, within the predetermined schedule of up to 6 weeks, the United States military, with the help of the Israel Defense Forces, achieved all of Washington's objectives as part of Operation Epic Fury.
In last night's wave of more than 800 strikes, we finished completely destroying Iran's defense industrial base, a core pillar of our mission objective. What little they have left buried in bunkers is all they will have. They can still shoot, we know that. Their command and control is so decimated they can't really talk and coordinate. So they still may shoot here and there, but that would be very, very unwise.
Washington's Secretary of War went on to stress that while the United States military temporarily stands by to give diplomacy a renewed chance, it will remain vigilant in the event that the Ayatollah regime fails to negotiate in good faith.
This new regime was out of options and out of time, so they cut a deal. They know this agreement means that they will never, ever possess a nuclear weapon. Under the terms, any nuclear material they should have will be removed. Now we have a chance at real peace and a real deal. The War Department, for now, has done its part. We stand ready in the background to ensure Iran upholds every reasonable term.
It is important to highlight that the Ayatollah regime had already breached the terms of the ceasefire 2 hours in when it launched 2 ballistic missiles with a cluster munitions payload towards central Israel. Nevertheless, after discussions held between Jerusalem and Washington, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's office released a statement in which it announced Israel supports President Trump's decision to suspend strikes against Iran for 2 weeks, subject to Iran immediately opening the straits and stopping all attacks on the U.S., Israel, and countries in the region. Moreover, Israel also supports the U.S. effort to ensure that Iran no longer possesses a nuclear missile and terror threat to America, Israel, Iran's Arab neighbors, and the world. The statement further revealed that the United States has told Israel that it is committed to achieving these goals, which are shared by the U.S., Israel, and Israel's regional allies in the upcoming negotiations. And while the Ayatollah regime is proactively trying to salvage its proxy in Lebanon, Hezbollah, the Prime Minister's office explicitly stated that the 2-week ceasefire does not include Lebanon. Meanwhile, in Israel's northern neighbor, the IDF has launched a high-intensity offensive against Hezbollah in Lebanon.
The IDF attacked hundreds of Hezbollah terrorists in headquarters throughout Lebanon in a surprise attack. This is the largest concentrated blow Hezbollah has suffered since Operation Beeper. Congratulations to the IDF for the perfect execution and to Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu for leading the decision and insisting on separating the arenas between Iran and Lebanon. We insisted on separating the arenas between Iran and Lebanon in order to change the reality in Lebanon and remove threats from the residents of the north. Naim Qassem did not understand what Nasrallah understood in the last moments of his life. That Israel after October 7th is not the same Israel of the past and will not accept any threat or harm to its citizens, neither from Iran nor from Lebanon. We warned Naim Qassem that Hezbollah would pay a very high price for attacking Israel on behalf of Iran, and today we fulfilled another step in our promise. The personal turn of the arch-terrorist Naim Qassem will also come. IDF forces continue to operate vigorously in Lebanon to repel threats and thwart Hezbollah's capabilities, in accordance with the policy we have established. We promise to bring security to the residents of the north, and that is exactly what we will do.
Thank you for watching TV7 Israel News, which is made possible by the generosity of our viewers. If you would like to help support TV7 Israel, which is exclusively donation-based, you can do so via our website at www.tv7israelnews.com. Please keep praying for the peace of Jerusalem and redemption of Israel. I'm Jonathan Hessen wishing you once again Chag Sameach ve'erev mevorach, and God willing, until our next update, Shalom from Jerusalem.